So good day to all of you, and thank you for joining us from around the world for an update on COVID-19 and immigration. And let's get right to it. Of course, as with any presentation, there's an agenda and a disclaimer we're starting out with. So my presentation is going to be about 20 to 30 minutes. And after that, feel free to ask any questions related to immigration on this topic. And the way for you to do it is you can raise your hand if you're signed in. And when you're called, you will pop up on screen without a video, and then you can unmute yourself. Sometimes that goes on its own. Sometimes you may have to click on that. And then go ahead and ask your question. And keep in mind, that all participants, not just me, all participants will be able to hear the question that you're asking. Now, as you know, for most of you, I'm your immigration attorney, and for that, of course, here's my disclaimer, and I want to tell you about the difference between information and legal advice. Today, I'm giving you information and not legal advice, because this is an informational webinar, and it is a generic information that I know about what's been developing lately on the COVID-19 and immigration front. And as you well know, these situations change constantly. So take with a grain of salt some of the things I'm about to say today, because what is holding true this morning here in Florida may no longer be true tomorrow. There are no steadfast or any published rules about what's going on currently. There are just executive orders, there's policy changes, there are things happening on a daily basis, and we are just governed by that. And many of the things I will tell you today are based on actual real-life circumstances and events that we have garnered from our existing clients and who have shared with us their experiences as, leaving the United States, coming to the United States, trying to come to the United States, and so forth. So with that, let's start out with the travel restrictions. And it is very, very important that you distinguish between COVID-19 related travel restrictions and travel restrictions in the United States that are immigration related. Now, with respect to COVID-19, there are currently travel restrictions to the United States from the People's Republic of China, from Iran, all of the Schengen area, which is most of the EU, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Brazil. What's important to note is that being a national or citizen of any of these countries is not determinative. Whether you can travel to the United States is a geographic, it's a location issue. Meaning, if you're a national of Sweden, or if you're a national of Russia, and you have been in the Schengen area within the last 14 days, that is what causes the travel restriction, and not you being a national of one of those countries that you see listed on your screen. And all other travel restrictions are purely immigration related. And so what we'll do, we'll talk first about the restrictions from outside to the United States to the United States. Many of you know that since March 20th, there has been a suspension of routine visa services. And a suspension of routine visa services means that all US consulates and embassies have basically suspended issuing visas, regardless of whether that country has a travel restriction to the United States or whether it's not. Of course, with any rule, there are always exceptions. So US embassies and consulates do issue visas if there is an emergency. And of course, what's an emergency? Frankly, we don't know. What I can tell you is that anything related to business in the United States, anything related to retaining United States citizens' jobs, anything that has to do with creating jobs for United States citizens, anything that has to do with healthcare, that will constitute an emergency based on our experience. I can tell you how low that actually might go in terms of of an emergency. We had a real life experience with a foreign national student who had an F1 student visa, and he went back to his home country. And while he was, and that's during the pandemic, and while he was in his home country, his student visa expired, but his studies were not yet completed. So he called the US consulate that had jurisdiction over his place of residence, and he actually got an appointment because the visa chief at that consulate determined that that is an emergency because he was already studying, he had not completed his studies yet. He got a new F1 student visa issued and was able to re-enter the United States. I must add that he did not come from a travel restricted country. Most of you know that since April 22nd, of course, we are victims and subject to the proclamation that suspends entry of immigrants, non-immigrants, immigrants who present a risk to the US labor market. And that would be anyone with a green card, really. And of course, as with everything in US immigration law, there are exceptions to that. So if you already had an immigrant visa issued to you, if you're a new immigrant to the United States and your immigrant visa was issued to you prior to April 22nd, you're still able to come in and immigrate to the United States. If your green card is based on being a healthcare worker, then of course you will be able to enter the United States. If you're an EB-5 investor and your green card is about to be issued or your immigrant visa is about to be issued, you can enter the United States, of course, with that. For those of you who don't know what an EB-5 investor is, that's the famous $1 million visa, which is now between 900,000 and 1.8 million investment. But the key behind that is that job creation, because those investors have to create a minimum of 10 US jobs, and that is why they are exempt from the proclamation. And then, of course, their spouses and children of United States citizens, or if you're a member of the armed forces of the United States, you're more than welcome to come back. Many of you know there was were reports that all ESTAs have been canceled. I tend to disagree with that. I have spoken to a lot of my clients and they tell me, well, my ESTA has not been canceled. And if you are an ESTA holder, I encourage you to go online and check whether or not your ESTA is still valid. And I'm suggesting to you, you might have an opportunity to travel to the United States if you have to, if you have a valid ESTA. However, if you are from the travel restricted countries, People's Republic of China, Iran, the Schengen area, the UK, Ireland, Brazil, or if you have been in any of those countries within the last 14 days, well, then the 14 days rule applies to you. That means you must spend 14 days in a country that has no travel restrictions with the United States. If you are interested in that, please contact us separately and we'll be happy to send you a link to the Centers of Disease Control's webpage. They have a very up-to-date world map which shows exactly what the restrictions in these various countries are and whether there are or not there are any restrictions on traveling from those countries to the United States. But if you come or if you have spent any time at all within the last 14 days in a travel restricted country, you need to quarantine or go on vacation, for lack of a better term, to a country that does not have these travel restrictions. Now, I get many, many inquiries, I don't have a visa, but I gotta have a visa right now because I gotta get stateside, meaning, I either need an ESTA, or I need a B1, or I need an L1, I need an E1. If you are looking for an ESTA, don't waste your time. That's not gonna happen. But another visa application, it may be possible to start the process. We have experienced this ourselves. And what you do, you've got to file your application online. Many of you know that, once this form, the DS-160 is filed online, it creates a case number with the various consulates and embassies around the world. and then you can attempt to schedule an appointment. In some embassies and consulates, that actually works. In others, it doesn't. And the ones where it works, what we have experienced is that the appointments just get kicked down the road. And on the ones where it doesn't work, the post will cancel that appointment, but they'll still move it along. What I'm telling you is that if you have a case number on the DS-160, you're in line. I don't know exactly what that will mean when our embassies and consulates open up again, but it seems to me that it is a prudent step. If you have a business here, if you're applying for a visa, an L1, E2, whatever that may be, it'll be prudent to get that DS-160 filed, so at least you are in line to have your application processed. An alternative, of course, is your case an emergency? And there's only one way to find out. Emergencies are discretionary determinations. That will not be a similar application in all of the embassies or consulates. So this is going to be different from consulate to consulate, and I think we'll just have to try it. So if you think that you have an emergency for a visa application, we'll be happy to evaluate that. We'll be happy to contact the non-immigrant visa chief at that consulate or embassy and see whether we can get our foot in the door. Well, now let's switch from outside to the United States to inside the United States, meaning if you are here currently and you are affected by the COVID situation, and if that adversely affects your travel plans or your work here in the United States. Now, if you're on an ESTA, as you well know, you can only stay here for 90 days, and then you got to get out. My compliments go to Customs and Border Protection. These people have been very, very helpful in extending ESTAs and making exceptions, and extending ESTAs 30 days at a time. In order to do that, you have to have travel plans. You can't just say, I'm stuck. You gotta demonstrate that you have the money, that you can remain here, that you're not engaging in any gainful employment, and that you have taken affirmative action to book a flight to leave the United States. If you have that documentation, CPP will help you. If you are in the country with a B1 or B2 visa, that you've got to extend. And that's an important part, of course, because yes, you may not be able to get out of the United States. And yes, it may not be your fault that you're stuck here. But if you take no action extending your stay here in the United States, if you just let that lapse and you remain here unauthorized, I promise you it will come to haunt you at a later date. It will come to haunt you on a future entry somewhere down the road. So please do extend your B1s and B2s if that's the visa that you're traveling on and you're currently unable to leave the United States. Many of you I know are on H-1B visas, and the H-1B visa is of course it's a great visa to have, but it's also a difficult circumstance right now to be in H-1B status. Up front, let me say, I want to debunk the myth between furlough and termination. If you're on an H-1B visa and you're furloughed, you're basically terminated. It's one and the same thing. Because if you're furloughed, you're likely not being paid. And if you're not being paid on an H-1B visa, the industry term is you're benched. And if you're benched, you're in violation of your H-1B status. You may be in a grace period of 60 days, or you may not be, but if you're furloughed, you are in violation of your H-1B status. If you are an H-1B employer, you must at this time, if you have furloughed or terminated H-1B workers, you must notify the USCIS of the actions that you have taken. You have to withdraw that H-1B. Your workers, or if you are working, you might be in a 60-day grace period, or you might still be employed and you might be working from home. If you are working from home in H-1B status, it is important to determine whether your home is in the same metropolitan statistical area than where your employer is located. Because if it is not, your employer will have to file an amendment to their labor condition application. The same holds true if you are or were a full-time H-1B worker and you are now only working part-time because of the pandemic, there may be a chance that your employer has to amend your H-1B application. If you had a wage reduction because of COVID-19 and you are here with an H-1B visa, your employer might have to change or amend your I-129 application. And of course, if you are an employer and you want to keep your H-1B workforce, there is still a way to do that. There is, without a doubt, a 60-day grace period, and although that is discretionary, within that 60-day grace period, an H-1B employer can file to extend the status or file for a new H-1B for that worker. And that worker will be allowed to remain stateside while that application is pending. So I'm just throwing that out there. That may be something to consider if you're struggling with your H-1B workforce on how to keep them employed, or if you are currently in H-1B status and you have been furloughed or terminated. If you're in the United States on an E-1 treaty trader visa, or if you're in the United States on an E-2 treaty investor visa, there are two things I want you to watch out for. One is marginality. And marginality, you all know a marginal business in the E context means a business that does not generate more than what the investor or trader requires to sustain themselves and their family. Now, in these times with COVID-19, your business may have been shuttered or your business activities may have been substantially reduced, and you may slither into this marginality territory. So that's something to watch out for. More importantly, I am very concerned if I hear from my E1 and E2 clients, hey, I qualify for PPP funds and I took that money. I would be very cautious with that. As you know, especially E2 investors, you always must have control over your business by way of shareholding as well as financially. Meaning when you got that E2 visa, your cash capital contribution had to constitute more than 50% of the total cost of that business. If PPP funds that you may have received put you below that threshold, you may be in violation of the equity and majority control requirement. I know many of you are here in L1A or L1B status. There's also something I want you to watch out for. It's very, very important. And the big difference is salary reduction versus job duties. There is no penalty in the L1 context for a salary reduction because you did not get, unlike H-1Bs, the salary was not a prerequisite for you to receive an L1A or an L1B visa. However, you did get your L1A or L1B visa without a doubt because of the job duties that you are to perform in the United States within your qualifying organization. So please do not change your job duties because that might put you outside the purview of your L1A or L1B. Many of you also know the new office rule. That means if I have a new business in the United States and I have applied for an L1 for the first time, the new office rule applies, and a new office is any business that has been doing business for less than 1 year. And as many of you know, the prerequisites in order to obtain such a new office L are much lower than a regular L extension. Now, there's a legal argument to be made. If you're in your first year of L and you're coming up on an extension of an L1A or L1B, that arguably, even though your business may have been here for more than 1 year, you have not been doing business for 1 year because of the pandemic. And there's a legal argument to be made to extend that L1 visa under the new office rule than under the regular L1 rules, and that of course lowers your burden of proof on what you have to provide. Now, if you're an F1 student who's in OPT, in optional practical training, or in STEM OPT, science, technology, engineering, and math OPT, you can have limited unemployment. I think if you're a F1 student, you can be unemployed for up to 90 days. If you're a STEM OPT student, it's up to 150 days within that 3-year period. However, you're allowed to work part-time, and that will count towards your work time in the United States and will not count towards unemployment. And as an OPT student, you can also volunteer. And if you do volunteer, you will not be penalized as being unemployed. However, that does not apply if you are a STEM graduate. As a STEM graduate, you must be working. Now, what about the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, the USCIS, the agency that provides all of our immigration benefits stateside? I'm pleased to report that they have reopened on June 4th, just this week, and they are taking limited in-person interviews. Frankly, at this point, I don't know what that means for our cases yet. Of course, they have been closed for the better part of 90 days. So there is a tremendous backlog on naturalization interviews, on all other interviews that we can find out there. So I think we're just gonna have to be patient to see on how quickly we can get interviews rescheduled that have previously been canceled. Info passes are available. Of course, there's a backlog with those too. For those of you who don't know what that is, an info pass is you can schedule an appointment at a USCIS field office to ask a question about your case. Sometimes that is a fruitful thing to do, and sometimes it's not so good. Now, all USCIS service centers continue to accept applications, which is a good thing. They have never shuttered. They have always continued to process H's, L1s, E2s, what have you. So there was no slowdown at all. And I'm also pleased to let you know that on select cases, the USCIS has come back with premium processing. It's different from case type to case type. There is a staggered phase-in of premium processing, which is, of course, something we all want to take advantage of if we have a case that fits within that category. From what I understand, USCIS continues to waive signatures because of COVID-19, meaning you can have the copy of a signature or an electronic signature on a form, and they still accept late filings, but please be careful with late filings because that is really something discretionary. And that means, you know, let's say your B2 visa has expired a couple of weeks ago and you just find out, or you just didn't know how to extend it. Well, you can still file that. In the past, you wouldn't be able to do that, but now they allow that. But it's discretionary. We still will have to explain as to why you are filing late, and the decision on whether to process that or not is discretionary by USCIS. Now that I've told you all the stuff that's possible, well, unfortunately, I have to tell you about things that I hear through the White House grapevine, things that I hear or in associations that I'm connected with. We try to be on the cutting edge on any development in immigration law, of course, and here's what I know. You all know about the proclamation that came out on April 22nd, we just spoke about it. And in that proclamation, there was an order that within 50 days, the president wanted additional recommendations. What else to do? Is there any possibility of further restrictions? And those 50 days are gonna be up on 6/15. And here's what I heard. There could be a temporary ban for certain non-immigrant visa workers between 90 up to 180 days. That's coming into the United States. And what that is, that would not be a policy change. What that is, that will be by way of an executive order. And that executive order will be permeated with exceptions. I can't tell you yet what those exceptions are. I hear a lot of things, but they are somewhat contradictory. So we'll have to see what actually comes out. And separately, there may be some rulemaking which is going to attack H-1Bs, OPT, STEM OPT, and H-4 employment authorizations. Now, in detail, here's what I know at this point. there are separate areas of new restrictions, and there are 5 of them. And it is very, very important that you distinguish between a proclamation and a regulation. A proclamation is something where the president actually has the authority by way of executive order just to say, this is the way it's gonna be. A regulation is something where the agency, in this case, the USCIS, will have to draft some new rule that will then be disseminated for public comment, and then the rule would be written, and then it would be implemented. So you're talking something way down the road. Any regulation or any proposed regulation is not going to affect us immediately, but a proclamation will. So if there is a proclamation, the talk is about barring the temporary entry of L1 visa holders, L1A as well as L1B, entry of H1B visa holders, H2B visa holders, and J1 visa holders. I'm a little confused about the J1 visa holders announcement because there are 13 different subcategories of the J1, so we really don't know whether it will apply to all of them, if any at all. But again, I don't want to be the fearmonger here, but that's what I'm hearing, what might be happening within the next few weeks. Now, with respect to regulations, I want you to know it, but I don't want you to worry about it at this point because of the lengthy process it would take to actually implement the regulation. So they want to change OPT and STEM OPT. And OPT, that's the talk that you have to graduate in the 15% of your class to get OPT. They want to do away with all of STEM OPT. I don't see how business is going to allow that. They want to change the H-1B requirements. They've been talking about a $20,000 filing fee for an H-1B and redefining what a specialty occupation is. I think there will be severe pushback from industries such as Facebook, Microsoft, Intel, and what have you. The regulation rescinding the H-4 employment authorization for spouses of H-1B visa holders, that's likely going to go through. That's been under attack since 2017. So I think that might actually happen. And then there's a potential regulation to eliminate employment authorizations for asylees, refugees, and TPS. Personally, I don't see that to happen, but it may. So there you have it. That's what I know. And now we're going to try to switch to taking your questions and see how we're going to manage that. I'm looking at some chat questions, and then if you want to raise your hand, you go ahead. Let me just go through some of the chat questions first, and see if I can answer those for you. Somebody's saying hi. Well, that's great. Religious services count as an emergency. That really depends on if your church is willing to write a letter as to how emergent your religious services are. As you know, in the United States, we do enjoy freedom of religion. This is taken very, very seriously. So yes, it might be, but I would like to talk to you individually about that. All right, now let's see. Karsten, talk to us. Karsten, are you there?
Good morning in the US it is. I just have a question regarding the one with the visa with the 14-day rule. I'm waiting for my application to go in, but I'm normally coming over visiting going to my wife when I'm on vacation, which I am 6 months of the year. So I will have to go to another country. I'm in France right now. So I would have to go to another country that is not on the list for 14 days before I can go over to my wife?
Yes, Carsten, you're correct, because in France, of course, you're within the Schengen area. What some of our European clients have done, they have gone on vacation to Bosnia, or I'm sorry, to Croatia or to Serbia. And there is a nonstop flight from Belgrade to New York. So that is my suggestion for you today.
Okay, thank you.
Sava, go ahead.
Yes, basically what I would like to know, because, you know, that what I wrote, that my friend received his green card and he submitted his I-130 2 months earlier than me. And, you know, and later on the I-485. And I just want to know if UCIS processing, you know, in order of receipt or not, so I can expect my card also soon or not, or because you know, basically he's
yes, I understand your question. Yes, the USCIS is processing, and it's going by order, so we'll just have to see how fast that goes. Yes, but there has been no slowdown in the processing. The only slowdown, Saba, that there is because of the appointments. And with the 485, of course, you're required to have an interview at the USCIS. Mr. William Shockley. William, are you there? We must have bored William. Rachel, are you there?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Rachel. All right, Rachel, go ahead, and then we'll talk to William after.
Yeah.
I was wondering, my fiance lives in France. I was wondering, as a U.S. citizen, if I'm allowed to fly to France and come back. And
I don't know. This is Rachel. This is a French matter. I encourage you to contact your airline of which you intend to travel with. They will know that. And also, if you want to reach out via email to us directly, I'll be happy to send you the link to the CDC world travel map. It'll say right on there whether you can get into France or not.
Okay. And also, is there any change on the fiance visa?
No, there isn't.
So will that affect like him coming into the United States due to all these regulations and things happening?
Well, it depends on when you filed your fiance visa. If your fiance cannot have an appointment at the post in Paris at this point, because you know that post is closed, so the restrictions will have to be listed. The posts will have to be open because all K1 visas will have to have an appointment.
Okay, so we just applied in April, so we have months till September, October. Do you think that's going to be open by then, or any news about that?
Again, and this is not an answer just for you, Rachel. This is an answer for all of our friends. I have a 100% success rate in being wrong about government processing times, or when they do something or when they don't. And I don't know, you know, I don't want to sound derogatory, but you know, personally, I feel by October we'll be fine, but I really don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, William, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, we filed our papers a couple of years ago, and we're waiting. They received our fingerprint related to the I-601A back in October. Is that still in process? Is that going to be a problem?
No, that is William. That is still in process. 601As are processed stateside, and the approvals or denials or requests for evidence are being issued stateside. And your case is basically stuck at that stage, if that's what you had filed. So unless there is an answer on your 601A, there will be no appointment scheduling overseas, wherever that may be in your case.
So we'll still be able to go overseas whenever they approve it to Mexico.
Mexico has no travel restrictions with the United States at this point. So if you would get a 601A approval yet and the National Visa Center were to schedule your appointment in either Ciudad Juarez or Mexico City, yes, you would be able to go.
Oh, okay. And then the website just still says it's updating. So is that still taking 8 to 12 months?
Again, government processing times, I respectfully decline to estimate those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Herman Constant, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I just have 2 quick questions. So right now I'm currently doing my OPT and it's ending January 2021. So my fiance wants to help me in the process of getting my green card. So one question I have is when should we get in the process? For example, when would be kind of
Now.
a deadline?
Today is
Now?
a good day.
So the earlier the better.
Absolutely, yes, because you're going to run out of you're going to run out of status in January. Then you have a 60-day grace period. Now's the time for you to start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Another thing, real quick. I heard I was informed that there will be an increase in the fees. Is that actually true?
There has been talk about the USCIS increasing fees, but I have nothing concrete at this point.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
William, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Go ahead.
I am a U.S. citizen, and I'm currently in the UK with my wife, who is a British citizen, and she has her ESTA that is still active and still good. And we were planning to fly to my home in Florida later this month. Should we have any obstacles in getting into the country?
Yes, you do. You as a U.S. citizen, you won't, but your fiance will, because she's a UK national currently in the UK. And the UK does a travel ban with the UK. So she would have to spend 14 days elsewhere first. The only other thing that I can recommend is contacting the Post in London to see whether she would get an exception on that. But just being the fiance, again, I don't want to put that down, but it does not seem like an emergency.
Well,
we're legally married. Does that make a difference, like in the state of
Well,
Florida?
then you're not a fiance, then you're the wife.
no, I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think my answer would be too long under this forum. I strongly encourage you to contact us on that, but we may get an exception on that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Mikola.
Good morning, Christian. I have a question about, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. About public charge rule, or this inadmissibility on the public charge grounds.
Correct.
So would collecting unemployment jeopardize immigration case? And there are two ways that I'm looking into it. Staying in the US and, let's say, living and re-entering US on a green card.
If you have a green card, accepting unemployment benefits, if you have a green card, that's an earned benefit. So if you have earned the benefit, I think you're entitled to also collect it. The public charge, are you talking about yourself, or are you talking about someone you're going to petition for?
No, myself.
No, if you already have a green card, unemployment benefits are an earned benefit, and I think you're entitled to that.
Okay. Yeah, it's just there was a couple of things on the web, and it was kind of all questionable. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Carlos. Okay, we'll talk to Carlos later. Steven, wie geht's dir? Steven, are you there? Steven Müller.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Christian.
Go ahead, Steven.
Thank you very much for doing this. This is very cool and my pleasure. I have a couple of questions. I-94, if I leave the country now in a country which has no travel restrictions back into the US, can I go and come in?
Yes, you can.
Perfect. Second question is, you mentioned about employment status. I reduced employment already before last year, November, and will increase it again. My expiration is 2022. And so does that have an impact right now or no?
Stephen, will you allow me to mention to our group that's listening what type of visa you have?
Absolutely. Feel free to talk. I know.
Okay, thank you for that. And I ask that for all of you listening. Stephen is a client of mine. He is on an E2 visa. And so I think it's important to mention that. No, there is no restriction on your employees. So if you have less employees now during the COVID crisis, we'll deal with that on the E2 extension. Of course, there's ups and downs. But again, as I said in my presentation, Stephen, the issue is really, you know, are you gonna get into the territory of marginality? I know your business well. I think you are not getting towards marginality with the products that your business is producing and selling. So I think that the number of employees is not going to have any bearing on your visa extension.
Excellent, thank you very much. And additional question is, we spoke about two special visa. One is the special business and the need for the USA and the product for the USA. Those two visas which we spoke about, I forgot the names. You remember?
Yes, you're talking about the national interest waiver. There, at this point, I am not aware of any restrictions on the national interest waiver.
So I can, as soon as I have my data together, I can send you that for filing.
Call Liz; she's waiting on your mail.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, Carlos, let's try again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we are gonna file the labor certification this week for the green card. How long do you think it's gonna take? Like, is there a way to expedite that process?
No, you cannot file, you cannot expedite a labor certificate. Again, you know, I don't want to take a wild guess on that, except to say that currently there are not many labor certificates filed with the Department of Labor, and we have experienced a quite quick turnaround on those. So congratulations to you on getting this filed this week.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Jim. Jim, are you there? Unmute yourself. All right, let's talk to Andrew first. Andrew, are you there? All right, let's find someone else. We're gonna have a—
Hello, I'm here.
All
Can
right,
you hear
Andrew,
me?
go ahead.
Thanks, good morning. I appreciate you making time. I am married to an American and I have completed my interview in Montreal. I had to submit one document to the consulate, which I've done, and then COVID happened. I'm wondering what your expectations are for timelines on when the Canadian border opens. Do you see Montreal starting to process visas again, or do you see a pause continuing for a while?
I think those are, thank you for that question, Andrew. I think the answer to that is twofold. Canada has just come out with an update on their travel ban due to the United States. They extended that until June 21st. And getting into Canada has been extended until June 30th, unless you have a reason to get in. Now, you are, of course, a United States citizen, so you could come to the United States. And if your spouse has an immigrant visa, if it is actually issued, you know, that travel ban would not apply to her. She would be able to come in once those restrictions are being lifted on June 21st. However, I have no clue when the post in Montreal is going to reopen. I will tell you that our experience with Montreal has not been the greatest over the years. You already know that because you are filing an application there. So I can't answer the second part of your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas.
Hi, Christian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for doing this. I have one question. My wife is Canadian and at the moment working on the accreditation for her license in the US. But she's not quite there yet, but she would like to start working earlier. So she's considering an H3 or a TN visa. And the question is, would she be able to go through a fast track application process or even some kind of exceptions, given the fact that she's a veterinarian and she's working in the medical area?
I will suggest to you that the H3, I would stay away from the H3. It's a training visa which requires an established training program which you will never turn into an emergency, since the H3 is designed that a person comes here to train and then bring that knowledge to outside the United States. So it'll completely defeat her entire visa process. So please stay away from the H3 in this context, Thomas. The TN, if your wife is a Canadian national, she would be able to get a TN as a veterinarian. You're absolutely right. We can certainly see whether her work as a veterinarian, depending on what she does within that field, would amount to an emergency, and I'll be happy to take a more detailed look at that. But of course, this forum, will not allow us the time to do that here online. But Thomas, please do reach out to us, because I think there's definitely something there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Jim, are you there now?
Hi, Christian.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you for doing this. Christian, I'm German. I'm here on a B1, B2.
Okay.
And my time of stay will be left on the 1st of the next month. Is there anything I'm able to do to extend my stay here?
Yes, Jim, we have to start extending your stay right now. Typically, the rule is that you should apply for an extension like that 45 days prior to the expiration. We're already, within that time frame. Feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction on that. But the answer is yes, absolutely, you must extend that stay.
What is needed to do for that?
Well, Jim, with all due respect, that I'm not going to disclose. In this forum, you're asking me for legal advice on an application on which I have not seen any documentation.
Okay.
I think it would not be fair to you or the other participants if I were to just give some.
But you think I really would have a chance to extend that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I will try to figure out the right way.
All right, thank you, Jim. Ron, how are you today?
Hello?
Hey, Ron, go ahead.
Hi, thanks very much. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks for all the very useful information. So the one question I do have is with regards to EADs at this time that might be pending. Do you see any changes happening, especially during these times where the US seems to be implementing some measures or immigration that helps prevent potentially immigrants from taking up American jobs? Do you see any delays in EAD processing by any chance? Have you heard
no, Ron. I do not see a delay in that. There used to be. What kind of dog is that?
Oh, sorry. I got two dogs. I got a puggle and a miniature.
That's what it sounded like.
Labradoodle.
Anyway, no. There used to be a slowdown in EADs, which had nothing to do with the pandemic. As a matter of fact, I'm getting reports from my clients that EAD issuance has sped up. It's back to the 90 days that we are used to. And at this point, I have not seen anything adversely affecting current EAD renewals. However, remember the last slide we looked at, there is a potential that something may be happening stateside. We'll know no later than the end of this month. But right now, no, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Gabriela.
Hi, so I'm a green card holder and I was going to apply for a re-entry permit, but if I do it now, if I get rejected, could I apply again later or no?
Yes, you could. As you know, with the re-entry permit, you have to be in the United States when you apply for it. And don't forget, there might also be a biometrics appointment and you'd have normally to be stateside to get that. But there's no reason why you shouldn't apply for it now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mirko, you're on my calling list.
Hi, thanks for this fantastic opportunity. And one short question: we had in the last year we had a governmental shutdown, and now we have a pandemic. And I wonder if the time frame for an EB-5 is significantly longer than we expected when we filed for it a year ago now, or is this basically the same? There were rumors that there's a change in the outline of this EB-5 pilot program, that people from countries which have anyhow to wait longer are back in the line. Do you know anything about the time frame for EB-5?
Of course. Will you allow me to speak freely, Mirko, since you're my client?
Yeah.
So Mirko is an applicant for an EB-5. There are no changes, Mirko. As you know, you filed timely, under the old investment rules, and those have changed last November. So now the processing times are actually beginning to creep up, and they're no longer slowing down. And this has nothing to do with the pandemic. This has nothing to do with the economy at this point. This has to do with lawsuits that many members of the American Immigration Lawyers Association have filed, suing the USCIS for failing to execute the duties that they are being charged to execute, and that is processing these applications. So we see a little speeding up on that. That's number one. And secondly, at this point, the EB-5s are still exempt from all the COVID restrictions for the very simple reason, because you're among the group of persons that by law actually have to get 10 new jobs in order to get that green card. And this is, of course, in this day and age, the most important thing. So you're absolutely on the right track at this point.
And do you have any time frame? Do you know what the time is now from if you start today, 3 years, 4 years, 2 years?
Mirko, I'm making a note as we speak. I will look up your particular case and give you a call after this presentation, because I want to look at your receipt notice and be somewhat more specific for your particular case.
Thank you.
Hallo Petra, wie geht's dir?
Good, Christian. Thank you so much for doing this. This is a great opportunity. One question I already posted in the forum. I was wondering if you had any indication when the travel ban from Schengen might be lifted, if there's a chance that it might be lifted over the summer. And the second question is related to businesses, foreign companies that need workers that, to come here for, let's say, installation of machinery that's part of the sales contract. If they go to one of the countries that are not affected by the travel ban and then travel to the US, do they need to have any kind of specific documentation or give the immigration officer a very good reason and documentation why they're coming into the country?
Okay. Your first question, when there's going to be a lift on the travel ban, we have absolutely no clue. We hear a lot of noise out there, but that's the one thing we have not heard. Whether there's going to be any easing of the travel restrictions. We get a lot of good news from Europe, really, and of course I know that you are mostly referring to the Schengen countries and Austria in particular. But what we see things getting easier in Europe, but we have not heard anything stateside as to any easing of restrictions if you come from any of the Schengen countries. So unfortunately, I can't give you even an estimate on that. And with respect to the our Austrians or anyone from the Schengen area or UK and Ireland coming to the United States, the 14-day rule still applies. The advice that I always give our Technica and all the people coming in here to put up machinery and build things, bring as much evidence as you can. Number one, that you have spent 14 days in a non-restricted travel country, number one. And number two, if you can bring a negative COVID test, that is obviously helpful. I just had contact with an Austrian business this morning, and that's exactly what their 3 technicians are doing. They actually got a test, and they're on their way to Canada to spend 14 days there and then coming in stateside. And so far, I have not heard anything adverse. Petra, I have not gotten any calls from any of our clients that they were not able to get in by following this guidance. And I don't even know whether I can call it a guidance. It's just something that, I think, your office and ours came up with it at some point to lend some guidance to what businesses should do, but so far that has worked.
Thank you.
Thank you. My friend Barrington, why are you here? Barrington, are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. This is Barrington and his wife Watson. I wanted to know, because Barrington has the case in Orlando scheduled for October. I wanted to know if you knew of any delays of rescheduling, or is it possible that do you think is still going to be seen on October, or what is that looking like?
I am not sure that that will actually happen in October. And I know Barrington has been waiting for years to be, to get this resolved. And are you allowing me to speak freely?
Yes.
So for those listening in, Barrington Watson is a client of ours, and he is in removal proceedings, meaning the United States government wants to deport him, and he has a hearing scheduled at the immigration court in Orlando in October. And so the question now makes more sense. Is that hearing actually going to take place? If you ask me that question today, I would say no, it will not, because what happened when the pandemic hit, all the immigration courts closed, and the only hearings that they held were what's called the detained docket. And the detained docket is the docket where people are actually incarcerated. So those people were able to get hearings, so in case they did have immigration relief available, that they could actually be released and go keep on going about their business. But we have not seen any rescheduling or cancellation on the non-detained docket, which Barrington falls into. So at this point, I'm going to have to ask you both to continue to be patient until we hear from the immigration court in Orlando. But the way we treat your case, we will govern ourselves as if that a hearing will take place in October, and we will be prepared.
Okay, and your thing expires in November, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Expires in November.
Catherine.
Hi, thanks for taking questions today. So my husband had applied for a green card prior to all this, and we had a meeting scheduled to do fingerprints. It was about a week after they closed down, and so we've not heard anything since. So should we still just be waiting for them to send us something of when to come back in, or do we have any idea what's going on?
So Catherine, you are petitioning for your husband. You're the U.S. citizen, and he's the foreign
Yes.
national.
Yes.
And you're both in the United States.
Correct.
All right. Has your husband ever taken fingerprints previously by the USCIS?
No.
No. So you're just going to have to wait until you're being rescheduled. There's nothing that you need to do.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
Hi. I have a green card. My husband petitioned me. We are on the removal of conditions of resident process. And does this affect when I apply for citizenship? Because we're trying to double effort. Yeah.
A good move on that. Put the immigration service up against the wall. I trust you've had your green card for 3 years plus, so you do qualify to apply for citizenship by way of marriage to a United States citizen. You can do that. Sometimes the USCIS will consolidate those cases, but they have to adjudicate your I-751 removal of conditions prior to actually giving you an interview for citizenship. Depending on where you're located, that depends on the local USCIS office whether or not they will do that.
But are they postponing this the removal of condition process? Like
I am not aware that there is any postponement on those applications because those are not being managed by the local field offices. Those are managed by the service centers, and the service centers have continued to process applications during the pandemic. The only way, Anna, that I could see that being slowed down if your case were to be selected for an interview, because if you're selected for an interview, that's of course at a local office, and we don't know what the timing on that is going to be.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Amia. Amia, are you there?
Yes, Mr. Zeller, I'm here.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much. I'm very pleased with your retaining your services since last 3.5 years. My daughter had filed a petition for me, and I've been in contact with Liz in your Orlando office on and off. I got a National Visa Center update status back in August regarding my immigration visa application. And then I went on the SEAC website to submit additional document which Liz did on my behalf. And then in March, I got another update saying that they needed my daughter's W-2, which unfortunately was not submitted earlier in the financial evidence. So it got submitted in March, and I've been waiting since then to know what's the status, or with this new regulation that has come in where the visas are not going to be processed by the Trump administration. Is that going to affect my case because everything was approved and I have a case number, I have an invoice ID number, everything's there?
Well, I mean, at this time, your case is only going to be affected by time and nothing else, because obviously the National Visa Center is the entity that will schedule immigrant visa appointments overseas, and all overseas posts are still closed for that purpose. So we'll just have to wait for them to reopen and commence regular immigrant visa processing, and then the National Visa Center will let us know when we can schedule your interview.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Alicia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm a current green card holder. Can I travel to Russia and then come back to the United States without any problems? Or will I have to sit in quarantine after coming back?
Well, right now we have no travel restrictions with Russia. I think the important thing, Alicia, would be that you travel directly from Russia back to the United States and that you do not travel through any of the countries that currently have travel restrictions with the United States. I have gotten some updates on Russia, and that there's a possibility that there may be a travel ban coming with Russia. So I'd be careful. Unless you have an emergency that you really got to go to Russia, I would respectfully recommend not to travel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Ronnie. Try to unmute yourself if it doesn't go on its own. All right, we'll try someone else. Gustav.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Zeller. Thank you so much for this webinar. I'm on an E2 since approximately 3.5 years back, and I'm going to need to prolong it in October. I did that by sending the extension to the Stockholm embassy last time. Now my children need to give their fingerprints as well. Do I need to go to the specific embassy, in this case Stockholm, to get it extended for the interview, or can I do it in the US?
I'm not quite sure why your children need fingerprints for an E2 visa.
No, that's to be able to, I think they're above 14 years old. That's why.
I understand. And where are your children currently located?
In the US.
What I would do if so are your children's I-94s running out? Is that what you're saying?
My daughter's I-94 is out on the 15th of September.
In this case, since we don't know whether there's a possibility for your children to go overseas at this point to actually get their E2 visas, I would extend their I-94 stateside.
But I still need to prolong the visas because my daughter's visa has expired.
As long as your daughter doesn't travel, the visa is of no relevance. The visa is only a document that allows your daughter to apply for entry to the United States as an E2 dependent. For her to remain in the United States, the extension of the I-94 will be fine as long as her passport, not her visa, as long as her passport is valid for more than 6 months.
So do we do that in the US, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, so we apply for an I-94 extension.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Willem.
Hello, this is actually Willem's wife, Emily. I am a U.S. citizen, and I brought Willem, who's here with me, in on a fiance visa. We are now married, and we filed and are currently waiting, I guess, their decision on our I-751 petition to remove conditions. I had questions. Some of my questions were answered by an earlier someone else who had a question. One of the things I'm concerned about now is that I was recently furloughed from my job, and I'm concerned about the new broader interpretation of the public charge rule, because we don't know. We filed this back in June of 2019, so I figure deliberation is going to come at some point. And if it I'm worried that if it comes while I'm unemployed, is it likely that that's going to affect us?
No, Emily, it's not going to be on removal of conditions. There is no, there's no affidavit of support issue, so I would not worry about it.
Okay, cool. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Valentina.
Hi, thank you for your time. It's very precious. So I have a current visa E2, and is about to expire on July. And I have already applied in last December for a new E2 visa.
Have you applied for an E2 or for an I-94 extension?
No, E2, another new one, because we changed the business.
Understood. Are you stateside or are you overseas?
And we're here in the United States.
Okay, go ahead.
So I didn't have any answer since December to schedule the appointment with the Italian embassy, which we were supposed to go there. So now what I'm gonna do, like ask for an extension, or what can I do? Because it's expiring at the end of July. But
it's not a question of your visa expiring, it's a question of your I-94 expiring at this point. So you need to take a look at your I-94, Valentina, and we'll, and then you can check with us, and we'll be happy to assist with the extension of the I-94, which is a full-fledged E2 visa application, by the way, the same thing that needs to go to Rome.
Yeah, okay, all right. It's clear to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, are you there?
I already asked my question. Sorry, I didn't
Ron.
lower my.
Let me throw him out. We already spoke to Willem. Here's someone we haven't spoken with. Shree, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for the seminar. I hope you can hear me because.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm in the process of applying for H-1B visa. So this is for a tenure track position in a university. So it's an assistant professor position. You mentioned something about some changes occurring on the 15th of June. And does that consider academic sector or something? You said there would be possibility of restrictions on H-1B visas, something like 92.
Well, we don't know what the restrictions are when they come about, but it will always only be prospectively and not retroactively. So if you are an applicant for an H-1B visa right now, then you're in.
Okay, so because we already have the forms, the embassies are closed, so I can't apply for the visas right now. That's the problem.
Are you applying for a change of status stateside?
Oh no, I am in the UK. So, there are additional complications.
Then we don't know. Then we'll have to wait until but has your I-129 been approved stateside already?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So
I still believe you're in, that your H-1B has effectively been approved, but it has not been issued because the post is closed. So it would be my guess, and I repeat my guess, that you're in.
Because I have I-21 approved, and I also have the I-797B notice of action.
I understand that, but it really will depend on what the new proclamation says and what the cutoff is, whether it has to do with visa issuance or whether it has to do with an I-129 approval, and we just don't know that today.
Okay, so the next question was, I am right now in UK, but I'm Indian, and my UK visa is limited. So I was thinking of going to India and get my appointment sorted with the US Embassy in India, but all my approval is done for London Embassy.
That's a bad idea. I would try to extend my stay in the UK.
Okay, so I should extend my stay in the UK.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Stan and Melania.
Hello, Mr. Zeller. How are you?
Good, and you? Go ahead.
We're in the K-1 process. My spouse came to Florida in January. We were married in February. We're currently going through the change of status process. We received notification that our documents were received in May. Could you just comment briefly on the timeline or any issues with COVID and K-1? I don't think there are any deadlines or cutoff dates as far as I know.
No, Stan, that is really nothing you need to do. On the adjustment of statuses, we have often seen that the adjustment of status based on a K-1 does not require an interview. And, Melania's green card might just show up in the mail. And we have not seen a slowdown on stateside processing within the service center. So at this point, do nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Louisa.
Hello, Mr. Seller.
Go ahead.
So I had a question. So a few years ago, my family and I applied for the process petition for alien relative. I think it's the I-130 form. And I had a question if because of COVID and everything that's going on, the process has stopped or slowed down because of COVID.
Who applied for whom?
It's from sibling to sibling.
Nothing has slowed down on that. You can't slow anything down that's already at a sloth pace. As you well know, those applications, depending on what country you come from, it takes between 10 and 25 years. Nothing has slowed down on that. What you are referring to are the visa numbers or the availability of visa numbers, and there has been no change at all.
And I have a second question. Right now, I'm in the U.S. with an F1 visa because I couldn't go back to my home country. So I didn't speak to the consulate or anything like that. But as long as I'm taking classes, am I good? Like I won't have any problems.
Speak to your DSO and make sure your I-20 and everything is up to date. And your DSO will note everything properly and see this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Brandy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Brandy.
Yes, I have a question in regards to I-130s as well, and if there's any travel restrictions in the Philippines, and if the national visa centers are operating right now.
There are no travel restrictions that I'm aware of with the Philippines, but the National Visa Center is operating but not scheduling appointments because although there's no travel restriction with the Philippines, our post in Manila is closed, so you can't get an immigrant visa issued.
Okay, and so there's no processes affecting. I am a U.S. citizen applying for my spouse and 3 stepchildren, and so there's no change in the I-130 process for them, correct?
That's correct, Brenda. There's no change in the I-130 process. The only handicap you currently have is to slow down due to COVID with the post being closed overseas. That's really the only thing.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicola, is this Nikki Bacchini? Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'm not kidding. Hi, Christian. How are you?
Good, and you? Are you in Firenze or are you stateside?
No, I'm stuck here in Italy, and the question is, I was supposed to come back to the States in April, and of course, due to the emergency, all the flights were canceled, and I'm still here in Italy. And the problem is that I've been out of the country more than 6 months, and I wanted to know what happens whenever I can catch a flight to the States, which I'm trying to do, but every month the airline on which I have the ticket, the ticket is canceling the flights to the States.
I understand. Well, so of course, if you remain outside the United States for more than 6 months, but less than 1 year, you become an applicant for admission. You just got to make sure that you demonstrate as to why you didn't come back. So, obviously everyone knows that Italy has been shut down, but it would be a good idea to collect documentation that demonstrates that you tried to come back. In other words, you tried to book a flight and then it was canceled and so forth. And then, of course, make sure that that you retain everything that you have stateside, Nikki. And that goes from your insurance and what have you. Just don't break down the 10 stateside. That's all you need to do.
But that means I have to make a new application?
No, you do not make a new application. Absolutely not. You're fine.
Okay. And whenever I manage to come back to the States, do I have to stay the 14 days?
We don't know yet. That really depends. If you want to come back to the States now, you could go to Croatia or Serbia and spend 14 days there and then come in. If you come directly from Italy, you can't because it's still closed. So we'll see what those rules are when we get them. We just don't know what the Schengen rules will be to come into the United States from a Schengen country.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Give my best to Lisa and to Stelvio.
Yes.
Navaf, what can I do for you?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. Go ahead.
Sir, I'm a K1 holder, and is there any time delay on the K1 visa? Because my application have been sent to California Immigration Office, and my sister, she's a U.S. citizen. She live in California, and she told me that the California Immigration Office are up and running without any problem.
So let me make sure I understand. You entered the United States with a K1 visa. You married your U.S. citizen petitioner, filed the adjustment of status?
No, sir. My sponsor, my fiance, she is the U.S. citizen, but yes. I am live in Turkey with Iraqi nationality.
Where are you now? Are you in Turkey now?
Yes, sir.
And the K1 has already been issued to you?
Yes, I got a notification from California that they received my application.
So you are not the recipient of a K1 visa yet. It's only that the I-129 application is still pending.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing you need to do. The California Service Center is processing everything normally under the K1s. Once you get that K1, once that K1 is approved or the I-129 is approved, then it becomes a question of getting an appointment scheduled in Turkey.
Yeah, but, the only question is there is no time delays in, the application.
There are no time delays with processing of I-129 applications stateside.
Oh, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Agnieszka.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So in 2018, I applied for fiancé visa. I'm an American citizen and my fiancé is from Cuba. In 2019, immigration lost all the documents. We resended, they reopened, they make mistake, they apologize. He got visa he got interview scheduled in Guyana. And we was waiting on embassy in Guyana to send us, and COVID happened. Do I do anything or do I just wait? I'm just very nervous.
You will just have to wait until until our post in Guyana opens up again, and then they will reschedule all appointments. There's nothing for you to do at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Paola. Paola, are you there? All right, I think that's all. We've gone a little over time, and I hope that I answered most of your questions. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us. And that concludes our presentation today. Good day to all of you, and thank you for joining us from all around the world.